Rain poured down in relentless sheets, drumming against the cracked pavement of Lexington Avenue, turning the sidewalk into a slick, uneven mess. Street lights flickered, their dim glow barely illuminating the worn buildings lining the street. It was past 11 p.m., and the diner was supposed to be closing. But Olivia Hayes had never been one to turn someone away when they needed help. Not when the world had already done enough to kick them down. She was wiping down the counter, her chestnut brown skin damp with sweat after a grueling 12-hour shift, when she noticed a small figure outsitting a boy hunched over in a battered wheelchair, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, a tattered coat barely shielding him from the cold. He sat just beyond the neon Lexington Diner sign, hands gripping a frayed blanket that did nothing against the chill. Olivia frowned, setting her rag down. She pushed open the diner door, shivering as the wind hit her. "Hey, sweetie," she called gently, crouching beside him. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The boy flinched at first, then looked up, his blue eyes wide, uncertain, searching. "I'm waiting for my dad," he mumbled, his voice barely audible over the rain. Olivia glanced up and down the street. No one, just the dim glow of a pawnshop's cash for gold sign flickering across the road. The sound of tires hissing against wet asphalt. "Where is he?" she pressed, concern creeping into her voice. The boy shrugged, pulling the blanket tighter around himself. Olivia exhaled, biting her lip. She'd seen too many nights like this, too many kids left waiting for someone who wasn't coming. "Well, you can't stay out here, not in this mess," she offered a warm smile. "Come inside with me, okay? It's warm, and I've got something special for you." The boy hesitated for a second, but then slowly nodded. Olivia gently took hold of the wheelchair's handles and pushed him inside the diner, the warmth hitting them immediately, the scent of buttered toast and burnt coffee wrapping around them like a blanket. She led him to a booth near the radiator, draping a fresh towel over his shoulders before crouching to meet his eyes. "I'm Olivia," she said, flashing another grin. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The boy sniffed, his fingers curling around the edge of the blanket. "Max." Olivia nodded approvingly. "That's a strong name. You hungry?" He nodded hesitantly. Olivia didn't wait for him to say more. She was already moving toward the kitchen, pulling out a fresh loaf of sourdough, slicing it with practiced ease. A few minutes later, she set a steaming plate in front of him, grilled cheese, golden and crisp, with a bowl of tomato soup on the side, her go-to comfort meal, the one her grandmother used to make when the nights were too long and the world felt too cruel. "This one's on me," she said, tucking a napkin into his lap. Max's blue eyes widened as he took his first bite, the cheese stretching in long, gooey strings. "This is the best thing I've ever had," he murmured, his voice laced with something close to wonder. Olivia chuckled, watching as he devoured the sandwich. "Good food makes everything better," she said lightly. But inside she felt the familiar achety one that came when she saw someone so young, so small, already carrying the weight of the world. What she didn't know was that someone was watching. Across the street, a sleek black Bentley sat idle in the shadows, its tinted windows reflecting the diner's neon glow. Inside, Sebastian Reed sat in silence, his sharp gray eyes locked onto the scene unfolding before him. At 46, Sebastian was a man who had built his empire on control, precision, ruthlessness. Reed Technologies was the beating heart of the city's tech industry, a billion-dollar machine that ran on efficiency, not sentiment. And Sebastian, its CEO, had spent years ensuring that nothing, no person, no emotion, no weakness could interfere with that. Yet here he was, watching, listening, thinking. Max was his son, and that woman, that black waitress in a cheap apron in a rundown diner, was feeding his son for free. Sebastian's jaw tightened. He had been delayed on a call, an emergency with his investors in Japan, and had told Max to wait by the diner for just a few minutes. He hadn't expected this. He reached for his phone, dialing quickly. "Elena," he said when his assistant picked up. "Get down to Lexington Diner. No suits, no heels. I need you there in 20 minutes. There was a pause. "Sir." Sebastian's grip on the phone tightened. "Find out everything you can about the woman who just fed my son." Then he hung up. Inside the diner, Max was laughing for the first time all night, swinging his legs under the table. SOUP stains on his chin. Olivia wiped it away with a napkin, shaking her head. Messy eater, huh? Across the street, Sebastian watched, his expression unreadable, his mind already working, already calculating bouquets. He didn't believe in kindness. He believed in debts, and whether she realized it or not, Olivia Hayes had just put him in hers. Olivia wiped her hands on her apron, glancing toward the diner window as the rain kept falling, streaking down the glass in uneven trails. Max was finishing the last bite of his sandwich, his fingers warm now, no longer trembling, his face having lost that weary tightness, that guarded look that kids his age shouldn't have to wear. She felt a small swell of satisfaction. One more person, one more moment of kindness. That was enough for her. Then the door swung open. The cold air rushed in first, followed by a woman in jeans and a hoodie, blonde hair tucked beneath a faded Orioles cap. She was out of place in the dinner net because of what she wore, but because of the way she carried herself, sharp, calculated, assessing everything in a single glance. Olivia had worked in this business long enough to recognize someone who wasn't here for the coffee. The woman's gaze landed on Max immediately. She softened her expression, crouching beside the boy. "Hey, champ. Time to go," she said lightly, though something about her tone was off to smooth, to rehearsed. Max frowned, wiping his mouth with the napkin Olivia had given him. "But I haven't finished my milk." The woman Elena, though Olivia didn't know her name, yet tilted her head with a practiced smile. "You can take it with you. Your ride's waiting." Olivia's instincts flared. She had seen too many people dismissed, erased, shuffled off without a second thought. Too many moments where someone like her wasn't expected to ask questions. But she always did. She folded her arms, studying the woman carefully. "You know him?" The woman's smile didn't falter, but her posture shifted, a subtle tightening of the shoulders, the barest flicker of hesitation. "Yeah," she said smoothly. "I'm his aunt." Olivia didn't blink. She turned to Max. "That true, sweetheart?" Max hesitated, just a second too long. Elena's jaw tightened. Olivia had grown up in a world where hesitation could mean everything. She knew what fear looked like, what power could do when it moved in silence. She also knew that this woman wasn't Max's aunt. She crouched beside him, meeting his uncertain eyes. "You good, baby?" she asked, voice softer now, like a shield. "You want to go with her?" Max looked between them, his fingers clenching the napkin, tiny knuckles going white. "She's here for my dad," he mumbled. "I guess I have to." Olivia didn't move. Her gut screamed at her to push further, to demand more, to make sure this kid was actually safe. But she had been here before, a black woman pressing too hard, asking too many questions, getting the wrong kind of attention. Still, she wouldn't send him away empty-handed. She walked to the counter, grabbed a chocolate chip cookie wrapped in wax paper, and slid it into Max's hand. "For the road," she said. His small fingers curled around it, and for the first time that night, he grinned. "Thanks, Olivia. You're the best." Olivia forced a smile, but something in her chest pulled tight. She watched as Elena wheeled Max toward the door, the quiet tension between them thick enough to cut. Then, just before stepping out into the rain, Elena glanced back. She didn't say anything. She just looked, and Olivia recognized it for what it was, a warning. Across the street, the Bentley's headlights flashed as Elena approached. The rear door swung open before she could knock, and Sebastian stepped out, his broad figure framed by the glow of the diner's neon sign. The moment Max was safely inside, buckled in the back seat, Sebastian turned to Elena. "Well," Elena exhaled, pushing back her hood. "She's sharp," she admitted. "Didn't buy the aunt story, almost called me out on it." Sebastian's expression didn't change. "But she let him go," Elena said pointedly. "She didn't have a choice. You know how it is, a black woman making a scene? She would have been the one in trouble, not me." Sebastian's jaw twitched, but he said nothing. Elena folded her arms. "She's not like the others." Sebastian already knew that. He had seen it the moment Olivia stepped into the rain, without hesitation. The way she had spoken to Max, like he mattered, not like he was an inconvenience. He had watched people bend, flatter, manipulate for his money. But she hadn't even known it was his son, and she had helped anyway. That made her dangerous. He opened the car door, sliding inside, his voice low. I want everything on her name, address, background. He fastened his seat belt, staring straight ahead. I want it on my desk by morning. Elena hesitated, just a beat too long. Serby morning, she exhaled, then nodded. Understood. The Bentley pulled away from the curb, the diner growing smaller in the rearview mirror. But Sebastian wasn't thinking about the city lights or the traffic ahead. He was thinking about Olivia Hayes and the debt he owed her. Olivia trudged home that night, her sneakers soaked from the rain, the chill settling deep into her bones. The diner's measly tips weighed lightly in her pocket, barely enough to cover rent, let alone groceries. But the memory of Max's grin stayed with her. Still, something about the encounter gnawed at her, that unease creeping beneath her skin. She had seen it before, that forced, polished smile on the woman's face. The way Max hesitated before answering. That wasn't just any stranger picking up a kid. That was someone who knew exactly what they were doing. She climbed the stairs to her one-bedroom apartment on West Fayette Street, where the heat barely worked and the walls were thin enough to hear her neighbor's TV blaring. 3 doors down. The second she shut the door behind her, she leaned against it, rubbing a hand down her face. She had learned a long time ago not to get involved in things that weren't her business. But this felt different. This felt wrong. Before she could shake the feeling, a knock sounded at the door. Olivia stiffened. No one came by at this hour. She peered through the peephole, and her stomach flipped. A man stood on the other sidle, broad-shouldered, dressed in an expensive black coat that looked like it cost more than her entire rent. His face sharp, his gray eyes cold and assessing, like he had already taken her apart in his mind before she even opened the door. She didn't open it. Who is it? A pause, then a voice deep, contra-led to controlled. Sebastian Reed. That name meant nothing to her. What do you want? She asked, keeping her hand on the lock. Another pause. To talk. Olivia's gut screamed hell no, but curiosity won out. Slowly, she unlatched the door and opened it just enough to see his face clearly. He didn't belong in this building, in this part of the city, in her world. I don't know you, she said flatly. His expression didn't change. No, but you know my son. Olivia's pulse skipped. She studied him carefully now, the way his presence filled the tiny doorway. The way his coat was still damp from the rain, but his shoes were spotless. This was money, power, the kind that could break people without ever lifting a hand. Her grip tightened on the door frame. Max, she said slowly. You're his father. His nod was barely perceptible. I was across the street last night. The chill that had settled in her bones turned sharp. You were watching. I was. Olivia exhaled through her nose. So what? You here to complain that I fed your kid? No. Sebastian's gaze flickered, unreadable. I'm here because I don't believe in charity, but I do believe in paying debts. And then, without waiting for her response, he pulled an envelope from his coat and placed it on her rickety kitchen table. Olivia didn't move. Slowly, she glanced at the envelope. Ethic, expensive, the kind of paper that had weight. The kind of paper that meant whatever was inside wasn't small. She swallowed. What is that? A job offer. Olivia's brain stalled. She blinked up at him. What? Sebastian tilted his head slightly, as if gauging how much patience he was willing to grant her. A job at Reed Technologies. 6 figures, benefits, the works. Olivia let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. You think I want to work for some rich white man who thinks handing out a check makes us even? Sebastian didn't flinch. I don't think you want charity, Olivia. That's why I'm not offering it. Her name in his mouth made something tighten in her chest. She folded her arms. You don't even know me. I know enough. His voice was steady, unshakable, like a man who never asked, only decided. I know you gave my son food without expecting anything in return. I know you didn't treat him like an inconvenience. I know that's rare. Olivia swallowed hard, trying to ignore the way his words knocked something loose in her ribs. She looked back at the envelope, at the ridiculous weight of it sitting on her table. And what exactly would I be doing at Reed Technologies? Making coffee. Sebastian's mouth twitched, something like amusement glancing across his face before it vanished. No, you'd be working directly with me, handling negotiations, public relations. You're good with people. I need someone like that. Olivia snorted. You don't need me. You've got a company full of Ivy League grads who'd slit each other's throats for a job like that. Sebastian's expression finally shifted, just slightly. That's exactly why I don't trust them. Silence stretched between them, heavy, waiting. Olivia could feel the weight of his offer pressing against her, curling around the edges of her pride, her exhaustion, her stubborn refusal to be bought. But six figures meant no more late rent, no more living paycheck to paycheck, no more nights wondering how she'd stretch her last $20. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Never owe these people anything, baby. You know they don't give without taking. Her jaw clenched. Why me? Sebastian held her gaze, and for the first time, something in his eyes flickered. Because you saw my son, he said, voice lower now, like it almost cost him something to say. Not my money, not my name. You saw him. Olivia's throat tightened. She looked at the envelope one last time. Then slowly, she picked it up. I'll think about it, she murmured. Sebastian studied her for a long moment, then gave a curt nod. Good. And then, without another word, he turned and left. Olivia stood there long after the door shut, the weight of the envelope in her hands feeling heavier than it should because she already knew. She wasn't just thinking about it. She was going to say yes. The first day at Reed Technologies felt like stepping into another world, a world where everything gleamed bright, where money smelled like freshly polished marble, and the air was thick with power. Olivia walked into the towering glass building in a department store blazer and thrifted heels, feeling every pair of eyes snap toward her the moment she crossed the lobby. It wasn't the kind of attention she was used to. It wasn't curiosity. It was evaluation, calculation, judgment. She kept her head high, shoulders squared. She had worked in places where people underestimated her before. She knew how to hold her ground. Sebastian was waiting in his office, a sprawling, sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A desk so pristine it looked more like an art piece than something actually used for work. He didn't look up when she walked in, just gestured toward the chair across from him. You're late. Olivia arched a brow, sitting. By 2 minutes. Sebastian finally looked at her, gray eyes sharp. That's 2 minutes I don't get back. Olivia exhaled, shaking her head. She had barely been here 5 seconds, and he was already starting. Look, you want me here or not? He leaned back, studying her. That remains to be seen. Before she could fire back, the glass door opened, and Elena walked in, a tablet in hand. Her expression unreadable. Olivia didn't miss the way the woman's gaze flickered over her, like she was assessing whether or not she belonged here. Spoiler alert, she had already decided she didn't. Ms. Hayes, Elena said smoothly. Welcome to Reed Technologies. Olivia met her gaze head-on, a slow smile curling her lips. Oh, we're doing last names. All right. Good to see you again, Ms. Mitchell. Something in Elena's eyes flickered, just for a second, before she turned her attention back to Sebastian. I've prepared the reports for the upcoming negotiations with the Orion Group. She handed him the tablet, barely sparing Olivia another glance. Would you like me to brief her on company protocols? Sebastian didn't even look up. No, I will. Olivia wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a warning. Elena only nodded, but before she left, she hesitated just slightly at the door, glancing back at Olivia once more. Good luck, she murmured. Olivia tilted her head. The way she said it didn't sound like encouragement. It sounded like a warning. She didn't have much time to think about it before Sebastian was already diving into work. No small talk, no settling in. He pulled up a file, sliding it across the table. Orion Group, he said. They want to push through a contract that would cut labor costs by outsourcing jobs overseas. That means layoffs thousands. Olivia skimmed the file, her stomach turning. And you want me to what? Convince them not to? Sebastian's gaze didn't waver. I want you to do what you do best. Read people. Olivia sat back, crossing her arms. So let me get this straight. You brought me in because you think I can what? Charm my way into getting these billionaires to grow a conscience? Sebastian didn't blink. No, I brought you in because I think you understand something they don't. Olivia narrowed her eyes. And what's that? He leaned forward slightly. That people who have nothing to lose fight the hardest. The words hit something deep in her ribs, something unspoken but true. She stared at him for a long moment, then exhaled, shaking her head. You know, you talk in riddles a lot for someone who runs a tech empire. For the first time, the corner of his mouth twitched almost a smile, but not quite. And then, just like that, the moment passed. Meeting's at noon, he said, standing. Try not to be late. Olivia rolled her eyes but didn't argue. She had a job to do. The meeting. The conference room was colder than the rest of the building, all steel and glass, like it had been designed to make people uncomfortable. Olivia sat beside Sebastian at the long mahogany table, facing 3 men in tailored suits, each one radiating the kind of confidence that came from knowing they could buy and sell entire lives with a single stroke of a pen. The leader of the group, Victor Harrington, 60, white hair slicked back, like old money arrogance was a birthright, barely even looked at her. Olivia had dealt with men like him before, the ones who only saw value in people who looked like them. She didn't let it show. Sebastian opened the conversation, cutting straight to the point. You want to move production to Taiwan. You say it'll save costs, increase efficiency. He paused. I say it'll destroy a workforce that's built this company's infrastructure for over a decade. Harrington gave a slow, thin-lipped smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. You misunderstand, Sebastian. It's not personal. It's just business. Olivia's fingers curled beneath the table. Not personal. She had heard that phrase too many times in her life when her landlord raised rent overnight, because developers wanted to revitalize the neighborhood. When her mother lost her job at the textile plant because they found cheaper labor overseas. When companies like this shut down communities and called it strategy. She smiled, but there was steel in it. Funny, she said, tilting her head. Because it's always just business until it's your job on the line. Harrington's eyes snapped to her for the first time. Sebastian didn't interrupt. He just watched. Harrington exhaled sharply through his nose, like he had better things to do than entertain the help. And you are? Olivia didn't blink. Olivia Hayes. Reed Technologies. He gave her a once-over, and she saw the exact moment he dismissed her. She didn't care. She had been underestimated before. Harrington leaned back in his chair, waving a hand. Look, sweetheart, I get it. You think we're the villains here, but this is about numbers. It's about what makes the most sense. Sweetheart. Olivia's jaw locked. She leaned forward, matching his posture. All right, she said coolly. Let's talk numbers. She slid a document across the table. This is a breakdown of what happens when you offshore production. Sure, you cut costs at first, but in 3 years, when labor demands rise in your new manufacturing hub, you get expensive. You'll spend millions restructuring, rehiring, and dealing with PR disasters when the headlines read American workers betrayed for profit. She tapped the paper. That's not a guess. That's market analysis. Harrington glanced at the file but didn't touch it. Olivia held his gaze, didn't blink, didn't flinch. You can make the smart choice now, she said, voice calm, deadly. Or you can explain to your investors why your short-term gains just cost them their long-term returns. Silence. Then, finally, Harrington exhaled, picked up the paper, scanned it. Sebastian didn't smile, but Olivia could feel the shift in the room. She had just changed the game. Harrington set the document down, his expression unreadable. We'll revisit the proposal. Sebastian nodded. See that you do. The meeting ended shortly after. As Harrington and his associates left, Olivia felt the weight of Sebastian's gaze on her. She turned to him. Well, Sebastian studied her for a long moment, then said, I knew I hired you for a reason. Olivia smirked. Damn right you did. And for the first time since she walked into Reed Technologies, she felt like she belonged. 2 months in, Olivia had found her rhythm at Reed Technologies, or at least she thought she had. She had learned how to navigate the halls of power, how to stand her ground in a world that barely acknowledged her existence. She had faced down Victor Harrington and walked out victorious. She had proved to Sebastian and to herself that she wasn't just here as a symbolic gesture, a corporate pet project. She was here because she belonged. But victories at the top were short-lived, because now the company was in trouble. Olivia was in trouble, and someone had just set her up to take the fall. She had just come back from a client meeting when Elena caught her in the hallway. We have a problem, she said, her tone sharp, urgent. Olivia frowned. Define problem. Elena didn't answer. She just handed Olivia a printed email. Olivia's stomach sank the second she saw the contents. It was a company report, classified financial data. It had been leaked to the press, and the email forwarding it had Olivia's name on it. The words blurred. The air in the room shifted, turned dense, heavy. She forced herself to breathe. This isn't mine. I know, Elena said, but someone wants it to be. Olivia's pulse thrummed in her ears. She had been in enough situations like this to know how fast they spiraled. A black woman in a powerful white space didn't get the benefit of the doubt. She didn't get to be innocent until proven guilty. She was guilty the second they said she was. She gripped the paper, scanning it again. Who else has seen this? Sebastian, Elena said. And the board. Her breath hitched. The board. She had barely clawed her way into this company, and now they were about to rip her out. Sebastian's office was colder than usual, or maybe it was just the way he was looking at her. His hands were clasped on his desk, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, those sharp gray eyes, were studying her, weighing her. Olivia felt something clench in her chest. Tell me I wasn't wrong, he said, low, controlled. Olivia slammed the mail onto his desk. This isn't me. Sebastian didn't look at the paper. He didn't need to. I want to believe that, he said, voice steady. But this is a serious leak, Olivia. Millions in exposure, stock drops, investigations. You understand how bad this is. Olivia leaned forward, hands planted on his desk. I understand perfectly. I also understand that whoever did this knows exactly what they're doing. I was the easy target, right? The outsider, the black woman with too much confidence. Who's going to believe me over some executive who's been here for 10 years? Sebastian didn't flinch, but he didn't disagree either. The silence stretched too long. Olivia's nails dug into her palms. Do you think I did this? Sebastian held her gaze. No. The breath she had been holding finally released. But he continued. The board does. Olivia swore under her breath, pacing. She could feel the noose tightening. So what happens now? She asked, forcing the words out. Sebastian exhaled, rubbing a hand over his jaw. We find the real leak. Olivia froze. We. Not you. Not me. We. For the first time since she walked in, the ice in her chest cracked. Sebastian stood, slipping his suit jacket back on. Elena is already running a trace on the email source, but it was routed through an external server. Someone covered their tracks well. He met her gaze. We'll have to be smarter. Olivia crossed her arms, leveling him with a look. And what if we don't find them in time? What if the board decides to cut me loose? Sebastian's jaw tightened. Then we make them regret it. Olivia studied him. Sebastian Reed was not the kind of man who made promises, but for the first time, she believed him. And whoever had set her up, they were about to find out exactly what kind of fight. They had just started. The truth unraveled faster than they expected. Olivia and Elena worked through the night, combing through server logs, tracing digital breadcrumbs. Whoever had framed her had been careful, but not careful enough. The leak had been routed through a secondary account, one tied to Marcus Thornton, a senior executive with tenures at Reed Technologies and a reputation for keeping his hands clean, while letting others do his dirty work. By morning, they had enough evidence to bury him. Olivia stormed into the boardroom before they could summon her like a criminal. The air was thick with tension, dozens of polished, powerful men in tailored suits staring her down like she was already gone. Sebastian sat at the head of the table, unreadable. Ms. Hayes, one of the board members, an older man with a thin-lipped smirk, gestured to the empty seat across from them. I assume you know why you're here. Olivia didn't sit. She never planned to. I do, she said, voice steady. And I assume you all know you're about to make a very expensive mistake. A flicker of amusement crossed Sebastian's face, but he didn't interfere. Ms. Hayes, the board member started, but she cut him off. I was an easy target, right? She said, pacing. The new hire, the outsider, the one you could pin this on and sweep under the rug. She stopped, placing a thick folder on the table. Except you picked the wrong one. She slid the folder toward them. Silence stretched as they skimmed the documents, their expressions shifting from dismissive to something closer to alarm. Marcus Thornton sat 2 seats down, his face paling by the second. These are traced emails, Olivia continued. Bank transfers, call logs with reportersal of them linked to Thornton, not me. She crossed her arms. And before you ask, yes, our legal team already has copies. And so does the press. So if you want to talk about damage control, I'd start there. A murmur swept through the room. Thornton shot to his feet, his voice a little too sharp, too desperate. This is ridiculous. She's bluffing. Olivia turned to Sebastian, lifting a brow. Am I? Sebastian finally spoke, his voice as sharp as cut glass. No, she's not. The words landed like a blow. Thornton's mouth snapped shut. Sebastian stood, adjusting his cufflinks. Effective immediately, Marcus Thornton is terminated. Full legal action will be pursued. He let the weight of his words settle before turning his attention to the rest of the room. And if anyone else in this company thinks they can play the same game, let this serve as a warning. The silence that followed was absolute. Olivia didn't smile. She didn't need to. She had won. 2 weeks later, she stood beside Sebastian at Max's graduation. The boy grinned up at her from his wheelchair, holding his diploma like it was the greatest prize in the world. I told you I'd make it, he said, chest puffed out. Olivia laughed, ruffling his hair. Never doubted it for a second. Sebastian watched them, his usual cool exterior softer somehow. You did good, Hayes, he said. She smirked. Damn right I did. Max glanced between them. Are you guys going to hug or something? Sebastian sighed. Absolutely not. Olivia rolled her eyes. God, no. Max just grinned. For the first time in a long time, Olivia felt like she had built something real, something that mattered. And she wasn't done yet. Years later, Olivia Hayes sat in the executive office of Reed Technologies, her name now engraved on the door as Vice President of Corporate Strategy. What had started as a job, a challenge, had become a mission. Under her leadership, the company expanded its ethical labor initiatives, launched mentorship programs, and built partnerships with minority-owned businesses across the city. Across town, a new community center bore the name Hayes Reed Foundation, funding education and job opportunities for underserved youth. And at its ribbon-cutting ceremony, Max, now a college freshman, stood beside her, grinning like the kid who once got a free meal in a diner. Because kindness, that was the kind of investment that always paid off. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through the kindness that changed everything. At Tales of the Heart, we believe in the power of stories to inspire, heal, and transform lives. Every narrative we share is carefully crafted to remind us of our shared humanity and the unexpected ways our lives can intersect. Subscribe now and let's continue this journey together on Heartbeat, one story at a time. Tales of the Heart, where every story matters, including yours.